Welcome back, Stoveminders. It's Monday, January 18th, 2021, and we're right in the thick of it, right on the middle of the element. Stove is hot. Let's get right to it, because the rumor mill is churning and big names are coming off the board. I'm talking about DJ LeMahieu. It's going back to the Bronx. 6 years, $90 million USD. Ooh. Yeah, this was the most likely landing spot for the LeMahieu, who has thrived, really, since coming over to the Bronx. And it took some compromise, as the AL batting crown holder was looking for a 5-year, $100 million contract. He will get a little extra length on this deal, which for a 32-year-old signed through into his, age 38 season is nice to have. Nevertheless, the biggest contract of the winter so far, by far, eclipsing Mr. Liam Hendriks by $36 million in total value. Well, the Yanks beat out the Braves, Mets, and Red Sox for the services of DJ LeMahieu, along with the Dodgers and the Blue Jays, who offered LeMahieu 4-year contracts at $60 million, the Dodgers, and $78 million, respectively, the Blue Jays, the bigger offer. Clearly, the money he wanted was not on the table, so a $15 million average annual value it is. How about those Blue Jays missing out on another player they're in pursuit of? A little rumored sidebar here, George Springer. He's looking for about $150 million. The Jays have apparently offered him 5 years, $115. So we'll see if Springer has to compromise down the road, because the way that this market was predicted to be and the way it's setting out to be, they're not going to get the big bucks. And if LeMahieu's only getting this much, well, that only bodes poorly for Springer. But as for LeMahieu, the man himself, well, for years he was a solid contact hitter over in Colorado. Underrated, in fact, the 2 All-Stars and 3 Golden Gloves over 7 years there, and the NL batting title in 2016. But since signing with the Yankees prior to 2019, he has slashed an incomparable 336, 386, 536 in just under 200 games. That's 2 Silver Sluggers in the cabinet, the AL batting title in 2020, and in both years he finished top 5 at MVP voting. Indeed, from a team perspective, LeMahieu has been the MVP, with all the injuries befallen the Yankees and the inconsistencies of some of their hitters. So no surprise at all that general manager Brian Cashman managed to bring him back, setting the tone for the market as far as batters in the process. As I said, 3-time Golden Glover, so he knows what he's doing. A yearly average of 5.6 defensive runs saved at second base, his primary position, although he can play around the infield as well. And LeMahieu can run the bases with about 30 doubles guaranteed. A couple more tidbits, because he is one of my favorite players. They call him the Machine because that's all he does. He's just I'd say the best pure contact hitter in baseball today, if I may say so. But delving into a little deeper, can tell you why exactly a reunion happened. See, okay, since the start of 2019, when he became a Yankee, LeMahieu has the 7th lowest strikeout rate among qualified hitters, 12.7%, which was not totally different from what he was doing with the Rockies, but he also, in that span, leads the majors in opposite field home runs. Because remember, that right field porch at Yankee Stadium is a little short. Strangely enough, his power numbers have increased since leaving Coors Field, a matter of ballpark dimensions and his personal hitting style, or the general path that the ball takes off his bat. So, of course, LeMahieu would want to stay in New York City, where he has flourished, where he knows he can be successful on a team that's vying for yet another World Series title. It's been 11, I guess almost 12 years now since the Yankees have won a World Series. And for that organization, that's a long time. And LeMahieu is going to continue to be a big part of that puzzle, a cornerstone or a keystone, if you will. bringing that lineup together, but they're going to need Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton to stay healthy. Going to need some consistency out of Miguel Andujar and Gary Sanchez. Luke Voigt just got to keep hitting home runs. I have Gio Urshela as well, but he's actually going to be hurt for the start of the season, just about. So we'll see how that goes. Re-signing LeMahieu was the Yankees' top priority this offseason, and they did so despite earlier saying they're going to be operating on a budget. And I mean, they did so at, I'd say, a discount than what LeMahieu was asking for and what I think he would get at like a normal market. Like, there would be some aggressive teams going to say, listen, like, this guy's one of the best pure hitters in baseball. He can play anywhere in the infield. We can slot him in there. So now the Yankees can switch their focus to the rotation, where three of their starters are free agents at the moment. Talking Masahiro Tanaka, James Paxton of Ladner, and J-Happ of America. Well, they've already made a move in that direction. And while the LeMahieu re-signing is big money, big talent, it's not a change. So I'm sorry if the enthusiasm level isn't up here right now. As I say, he's one of my favorite players, DJ LeMahieu. Am I happy to see him playing for the Yankees? No. Am I happy to see him succeed? Sure. But the work's not done there in the Bronx. They need a starting pitcher. And the Yankees pulled a wild card. Corey Kluber, right-hander, 1 year, $11 million. This raised some eyebrows on my end at first, considering how suspect Kluber has been the past couple years, making $11 million a risk, a big one. Recently, as in the past month, Kluber threw a 30-pitch showcase that apparently impressed a lot of teams. He allegedly turned down an offer more lucrative than the $11 million. The Blue Jays and the Rays are some of the teams cited as being particularly aggressive on Klubs. But again, a 30-pitch showcase for a guy who's thrown 36-plus innings the past 2 years, and in that span has been bad. Must have done really well, right? Apparently his velocity topped out at 90, which is a bit below the 91 to 92 he usually averages. But even that average is telling. Kluber is not a power pitcher. He's not going to overwhelm you with his velocity or anything like that. He's very precise if you go and watch the way he pitches. Similar in vein to like a Greg Maddux, I would say. So even though Kluber is going into age 35 this spring, there are some pros and cons, I guess, to this deal as far as a potential comeback. And apparently, again, he impressed a lot of teams with that showcase, so it was a good news going forward for the Yankees. Anyway, I just want to go a little bit over the last 2 years he's done, because before that, Corey Kluber, not too long ago, one of the best pitchers in baseball without question. Okay, so in 2020, he threw 1 inning with the Rangers before coming down with a shoulder injury. And the year before that, 2019, he made 7 woeful starts for the Indians, struggling with command like never before, and then fracturing his forearm. Not good news for a guy who will turn 35, but as you may remember, Kluber was one of the best. 2 Cy Young, oh my goodness, it's a rough day. He's a 2-time Cy Young Award winner, and he's finished 3rd in voting 2 other times. I'm not sure if the Yankees expect Kluber to come to that exact old form, but if they've taken a chance here, it might also be because of a little bit of a conflict of interest. Okay, so the doctor who has overseen the shoulder rehab for Kluber, Eric Cressy, is on the Yankees staff. Now, conflict of interest can go both ways. Cressy might be upselling the Yankees on a client of his. Or the Yankees might have inside knowledge here about exactly where Corey Kluber is at. So, I mean, everyone seems pretty optimistic here. But there is tremendous risk. What if he gets hurt again? Because he's gotten hurt twice in the last 2 years, and they've both been significant. And what if those command issues are still there? A 30-pitch showcase is one thing. Pitching in a game is another. Okay? Especially when you're expected to go out there and give 80, 90, 100 pitches, at least. Okay, back to the Yankees' rotation issues. Well, let's just go back to, okay, so where does this leave the New York Yankees rotation? Well, they got the immaculate Garrett Cole. And then Luis Severino, another high upside hurler, but with major injury concern. And then probably Kluber, the third spot theoretically. And rounding it out, you got a mix of like swingman like Jordan Montgomery, Michael King, some young guys prospects, Clark Schmidt and Davy Garcia, who've pitched a little bit in the majors. And you also have Jonathan Loaiziga of Nicaragua, top prospect, but a surprise, surprise, the health check is not positive. And then you've got Tanaka, Paxton, and Happ all available, but not on the team. They have to re-sign them. Where does the Yankees' payroll situation stand in regards to that? Right now, it is projected at just under $180 million, which is $30 million below the first luxury tax threshold. It's the Yankees. It's what they do. But recently, Tanaka came out and said he's looking for $15 to $20 million a year, which, if that's the deal that went down, the Yankees' payroll would be very close to $200 million, getting kind of uncomfortable. And that is an organization that's, while they're not afraid to spend big, once they're over that threshold, and especially after a couple times, it starts to weigh on you, and they had to cut payroll in the past because of that. So maybe they're probably not super stoked to do that. But chances are maybe some pay cuts will be in order. You look at this. Corey Kluber was a big name free agent. Upside-wise, he's really up there. It's just what he's actually done in the last couple of years has been discouraging, to say the least. Would Tanaka, Happ, or Paxton or any other free agent pitcher maybe on the Yankees' radar say, okay, well, Corey Kluber just made $11 million. I've actually been pitching the last 2 years. What am I going to get? And I think that's maybe why Tanaka came out with these demands. And he's been very aggressive in these negotiations, Mr. Masahiro Tanaka, threatening to go back to Japan if he can't re-sign with the Yankees and saying, okay, I'll look at other teams. So, I'm not sure what the status of that relationship is going to be, or if the Yankees can put aside a little personal for a little business, which I think they can, or they should, at least, being the New York freaking Yankees. But, it would be interesting to see what other starters the Yankees sign to complete this rotation, because that is, I'd say, their biggest question mark easily, starting pitching. Staying in the AL East, how the boys down in Boston doing? They re-signed Martin Perez, left-handed starting pitcher, to a 1-year contract, $5 million guaranteed with a $6 million option. Interesting here from market talk. Perez has taken a pay cut to return to Boston after a so-so 2020, despite offers from 5 other teams. No word yet whether or not other teams are offering him more money or not, but the Red Sox bought him out at the end of the season. His option, I want to say, was like $6.5 million or something like that. Anyway, despite being just under 30 years old, Perez has 9 seasons of Major League Baseball on his resume. He's a bona fide back of the rotation inning eater, average at best, not exciting in the slightest, but you need that number 4 or 5 guy, and especially do the Red Sox because of the injuries that have befallen them. Their pitching staff likes to hang out at the hospital. The likes of Chris Sale, Eduardo Rodriguez, Nathan Eovaldi on the rotation, and you got Tanner Houck and Victoria's own Nick Pivetta. Yeah, I don't know how much noise the Bean Eaters are going to make in 2021 as things stand, but to at least bring back Perez helps maintain the status quo. Red Sox are in the market for a starter, likely from the middle tier of free agents, and it could be looking at a temporary second baseman on like a 1-year bridge deal with top prospect Jeter Downs doing his thing on the farm. And as far as that earlier news that Andrew Benintendi was on the trade block, that hasn't changed, but the Red Sox are probably finding it hard to find a buyer with the quality of corner outfielders on the market. That's just what's going on in Boston. I haven't heard too much from the Red Sox. And you're talking Yankees, you have a chance to talk to the Red Sox. You're going to do both. And I'm going to talk about the Angels, because they signed catcher Kurt Suzuki to a 1-year contract worth $1.5 million. The 14-year veteran Kurt Suzuki will join his 5th team, and it's exactly the move the Angels needed to make. Their primary catcher, Max Stassi, is coming off a hip surgery. He'll be limited to start the season, and the 37-year-old Suzuki can still hit, which is great news. Over the past 3 seasons, he has a 268 average, 784 OPS, just above league average on the OPS plus scale. Not bad for an old catcher. But this is a position where you got to play D, and Suzuki does have some drawbacks in that department. He's rated as below average in everything from framing to defensive run save to catching, base stealers. That will be an issue. But the Halos needed a catcher, period, and they got him on the cheap. And Stassi, that guy, he's a great defender who can barely hit. So there you go, a perfect tandem for Los Angeles A's. We can put rumors of Real Muto or Contreras to the Anaheim to rest. And apparently, Suzuki left money on the table to choose the Angels, so at least he's down to be there. All right, bungled through that whole Yankees section. Quick arbitration notes. Cody Bellinger, $16.1 million. Chris Bryant, $19.5 million. Javier Baez, $11.65 million. And Francisco Lindor, $22.3 million. Welcome to New York. Much higher than expected. Well, not much higher, but a few $1 million higher than projected for Lindor. $22.3 million in salary in 2021. Might be his only season with the Mets. Might be the foundation to an extension. We don't know. Rumors. The Phillies have made JT Realmuto an offer that he might refuse. 5 years, $100 million for the top free agent catcher, one of the top bats on the market. For him to return to Philly. He is their number one priority. They've made it known. But the Nationals and the Blue Jays remain in the hunt as well. Speaking of the Blue Jays, a lot of talk about them because they're under a lot of self-imposed pressure to sign a top free agent. And I feel like if they miss out on some guys, they might get a little desperate and swing a big offer for someone. But that's not going to change anytime soon because they gave their president/CEO Mark Shapiro an extension recently. And I bring up Shapiro because him and the general manager Ross Atkins, that is the battery of the front office, they used to be down there in Cleveland with the Indians. And in that time, they knew a guy named Michael Brantley. And so the Blue Jays and Brantley have been connected recently due to that familiarity. But the Blue Jays still remain in hot pursuit of George Springer, Brantley's former teammate down with the Astros. And as I mentioned, the 5-year, $115 million offer, but a factor in the Springer sweepstakes might be geography. See, Springy is from Connecticut, which is pretty close to Queens, New York. So watch for the Mets to maybe swoop in and pull Springer from the rug underneath the Blue Jays' nose, and then they're going to go give a very expensive deal to Michael Brantley, and we'll see how that turns out. Or who knows? Who knows? Braves are reportedly not interested in bringing back Marcell Ozuna, which makes sense given their outfield depth and the fiscal caution that they've shown in recent years. So don't forget about Ozuna, who took until very late in the offseason last year to sign with Atlanta. And leading in on the Ozuna point, rule talk. MLB wants to bring back 7-inning doubleheaders and designated runners in extra innings. Probably a safety measure in case coronavirus gives the schedule a swirly yet again, much like what's happening in the NBA right now. As for universal DH, which earlier this winter appeared to be off the table, apparently universal designated hitter is still very possible. The league and the Players Association are still discussing it, and the league office sent out a memo telling clubs to prepare as if the universal DH will be here in 2021. That is a matter that is surely holding up the market for some players, as there is uncertainty galore in the front office. Affects Ozuna as well as, of course, your traditional DHs like Nelson Cruz. That is a matter, but for now, hot stove's hot. God bless.